Hi guys and welcome, my name is Michael and I am the DeadAussieGamer here to share with you my tips, tricks, ideas and strategies for playing and running tabletop role-playing games. Now, today we're going to be discussing creating safe spaces because, as we find ourselves today playing role-playing games all over the world and online and, with people that we do and do not know, I think it's more and more important to be able to discuss what a safe space is and how to exist within them, especially around your friends and neighbors. But of course, I thought rather than discussing this with you guys by myself, I would go and visit a good friend of mine, the CritCrab, over on his beach. Now, this is actually the first time I've, kind of moved away from the crypt in order to give advice and talk about things. So I'm not sure entirely what this button's going to do. So stick with us, guys, as we head over and visit CritCrab on his beach. All right, let's see if I push that. Nope, that's it. Oh, good God. Ladies and gentlemen, CritCrab.
Hello, everybody. It's me, CritCrab.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. And you know what? I must say that the absolute luster on your shell is looking phenomenal this morning.
Why, thank you. I just had it polished this morning.
Awesome. So today we're going to be discussing safe spaces. And I got to say, this is a beautiful beach. I feel very safe here.
Yeah, thank you. I try and cultivate a sort of safe aura around myself and wherever I like to go.
Oh, is it like a 30-foot aura?
Oh yeah. It's a spell. It's like what's his name? The tiny hut spell from D&D.
Perfect.
It's just like that. Just like that.
All right, fantastic. So for the folks at home who don't know, what sort of side of the beach you come from, what is it that you do in the space called the internet?
Yeah, okay. So, what I do and what I have been doing for about 2 years now is I go to the front page of the internet, Reddit, and I kind of dig up the worst stories I can find about Dungeons and Dragons or things that have happened within, and I retell those stories on my channel.
Fantastic. And you know what? I gotta say, as someone who's been a fan for quite a while, each of these videos have been just so inspiring. Not just because, you get to see some of the really, 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 really horrible sides of role-playing, but because you've always managed to view exactly what areas of these games go wrong. And so many of these videos can be amounted to what I think is, these people just haven't created a safe gaming environment.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that the problem is a lot of these people either don't care to or do not want to create a safe gaming environment for the people around them and instead focus only on themselves or what they would like to do.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? It's a struggle because, when you come to a role-playing game, there is definitely a sense of ego that needs to go into it. You're making your character. If you're a GM, you're writing your story, and it always comes down to, being able to differentiate between those moments where it is all about you and what you're doing in that space and what you're doing that creates the space as a welcoming, fun, and engaging environment. And I guess that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I guess my first question here is, what is the value, I guess, of having a safe environment or having that safe space?
Oh, I think that the value is that you can have a group of people who feel like happy, safe, and they're having a good time. They're not on their toes or walking on eggshells. And what happens is they keep coming back and they keep feeling good because at the end of the day, it's a game, right? That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to play around and have a good time and not really have to worry about, somebody saying or intentionally doing something to twist the knife and make you feel bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know what? Sometimes the idea of, I guess, the reality simulator can kind of play havoc with that, where
Absolutely.
you kind of get into your headset that it's like, yes, in order to be the best kind of game master, my players must be in tears, weeping at my magnificence.
You get that a lot. You
Yeah,
get that a lot, especially with GMs or players who focus way too much on realism and not nearly enough on playing a game.
Mm. No, absolutely. And you know what? I actually tell this to a lot of people, especially around horror games, because I'm a big fan of horror. I mean, the
Oh,
macabre is
same. I
always,
love it.
yeah, the macabre has always fascinated me. I mean, the Dead Aussie Gamer is always part of that. And I've likened it to this. If you're telling a great story as a game master, you can describe a creature and you can create a sense of false fear, something where everyone still feels like they're safe, but triggers those kind of emotions. If you're, kind of just trying to get a reaction, it's the equivalent of you pulling up a rubber spider and throwing it at someone at your table. That's not really GMing. That's you being a prat. You know what I mean? Like,
That's a great analogy. That is a great analogy. It works. It's a lot like jump scares, how it's like, ooga booga booga,
yeah,
I got you for like all of 2 seconds.
yeah. No, exactly,
No,
exactly.
there's usually not anything that lasts very long or really sticks with people about being jump scared. It's just like a poof.
That being said, I will say this: Fear, FEAR, was an awesome game for jump scares, and it was because it built and added those jump scares to the story. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We'll save that video for Halloween, right?
Yeah.
Continuing on our topic of safe spaces, how would you suggest to people who say may never have done so? How would you suggest that someone create their own safe space? What are some of the things that you can do to make sure that the players, the GM, everyone just feels welcome?
Oh, personally, I think that the best thing you could do and the most natural thing you could do, instead of introducing something that some players may be foreign to, I should say, is having a session zero. I say it a lot on my channel, but it's only because it's really good advice. Before the game actually starts, have a session where everybody sits down, they makes their characters, they talk about how the campaign's going to go. The DM might have a conversation with what the players are and are not comfortable with, and things that, they might not like to see or like to see more of in their game.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And you know what? I fully concur. I think good session zeros are the linchpin for good campaigns, especially when you don't know certain people at the table, like you might be playing.
Exactly.
You might absolutely be playing with your close group of friends, and you guys know each other in and out, and all of that little subtext and things that you say and what they actually mean. But when you're a new person into that space, it can sometimes be very intimidating. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to this because it is one that I've seen and experienced from a lot of my audience in the past, and that is, what if the game is already in progress? What if you are entering an existing space where those safety measures have been made with different people? What would you give to advise on folks entering that area or preparing for someone to enter?
That is a very good question. I'm not 100% sure I know the answer to that, though. I'm sure that it's never too late to take the experiences that you've had and kind of gauge how comfortable you may feel other people have been, or sort of ask around.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not entirely sure how to go about in the middle of a campaign in a natural sort of way, other than going back over and kind of having a session 0.5 or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like session 35.01.
Session 35. But I just want to make sure you guys are getting what you want out of the campaign. What I personally do is, after each session I would have, is I usually go around and ask players like what they might have liked or what they didn't, or how I can improve upon the things that I did, or kind of pick out or improve things that they weren't so satisfied with.
Yeah.
And over time, by collecting feedback that way, I sort of what should I say? I sort of like finely tuned the type of campaigns I run to my players and exactly what they like and don't like.
And that's a great way to do it. I mean, the thing is it's a learning process, right? Like there is no set. Here is the exact answer to how to run your game.
Absolutely true.
Always learning, always growing, and having people enter a space. I mean, so I run public games quite often, And it is a difficult thing for someone brand new to jump into a space where people already exist. The friendships, the bonds, they've already been made.
Yeah.
And pretty much the only thing I've ever had to say about it is when you have a character join that situation, the most important thing is communication and not having secrets. A story that I had, which was always this very, very weird one, is we had this guy who wanted to play a druid who wanted to be super, super sneaky and only travel in animal form. And that's the only way the group ever saw him was in animal form. He wanted to help the group and do the quest and all that, but never be a part of the team proper. The trouble is that the more perceptive members of the group started noticing that there was this bird following us around. And when eventually it came time for the spellcaster to go, yes, actually I am here to help you in your thing. It was me, I was the bird the whole time. It's like, the bird is the mastermind. It's the big boss, get him! And it was a whole other thing. So, yeah. Secrets don't work well when you're entering that space. It's
not really.
Yeah, it's building trust. That's what it is. It's building trust and understanding and communicating.
Yeah, I do think that secrets can be handled well in character. Like, I mean, I've seen it and I've done it several times over. However, as a general rule of thumb, I would sort of keep that to when you know and have rapport with the rest of the group and you know how to play with them without secrets, because they can be really cool, but only insofar as you know how it would go over and how to do it effectively. You usually also want to collude with the DM on that because, the DM is kind of the guy in charge.
100%. And I'd like your thoughts on this as well, because while we're talking about the idea of a safe space, one of the very important elements to that is trust. And talking about the idea of secrets, now for me, I've always played with the philosophy that you may keep secrets in character from your other characters, but there are no secrets at my table between players. If your character is secretly chaotic evil, and you are an anti-paladin who is infiltrated an actual paladin temple, and you're actually a villain who is out to kill a different villain, right? Sure. Cool backstory, very, very interesting. Now, I would say that player needs to be open with that to the other players.
Oh, absolutely.
But the character itself, that then comes down to the other characters not knowing and not, sort of going, oh yes, no, this is our paladin friend. He works for the Church of Torm. He is upstanding and righteous, and help play into that illusion. Because if you don't, then you suddenly have 4 or 5 people Sherlock Holmesing everything you do when something doesn't add up, What do you take of that notion of, like, sharing secrets openly, that sense of, like, just leaving nothing to bear?
That is a very interesting conversation because on one hand, sharing everything with every other player will ensure a smooth road, pretty much, as long as nobody's, being a baby about it. It'll ensure that it goes smoothly. The game's not going to get hung up on a weird thing you did for like 30 minutes, right? And also there's just more trust, and trust is super important. However, it also does kind of take away from the feels, the emotion at the table as they're uncovering a secret or as it's being revealed. It's like, well, yeah, we kind of already knew that. So, I've done like secrecy, betrayal, and whatnot at the party. I've done it with the players seeing it coming and with the players not seeing it coming. And what I think it comes down to is the players knowing themselves, the GM, and each other well enough to know that whatever's going on, the DM knows about, and he's handling it as best he can.
Absolutely. No, I think I could absolutely agree with that. Especially if you have that trust with the GM as well, it bolsters it to know that, you're not creating this character in a bubble and then telling everyone what's in your bubble. You're actually inviting people to be a part of that experience and to actually offer it out there for your GM to be able to add to the story. Is all a part of what the living world is, like the living world of the role-playing game.
Yes, I should add, in my humble experience, I would not go creating secrets or plans of betrayal or whatnot without keying the DM in, because
Yeah,
it can get yeah, like, oof, don't do it. Just, I'm not even gonna go into why. Just,
don't
you
do
don't
it.
want to.
That's it.
You
Just
don't want to.
don't do it. That's it.
Always
There's
clue
no.
the DM in, work with him or her, and make it make it work thematically.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. You do not want to be doing, like I actually have a house rule, and this is mostly for children, but I don't see why it couldn't work for adults. And that is, in the rulebook, it distinctly says that the game master is responsible for the NPC characters and the obstacles the players face on their journey. At the point in time in which your character becomes an obstacle to the rest of the group, it's mine. Hand me your character sheet now. This belongs to me.
Ooh.
This belongs to me. This is my character now. You forfeit it when you became an obstacle to the other players.
I can see how that rule would be very valuable to make sure that, kids don't, act like kids about it.
Oh yeah, no, and you know what? Some of my kids are so mature about it. Some of my kids have seen both your channel and seen similar stories and have told me about them. And the way they've discussed them is like, like you would imagine, like, an old man sitting on a sofa reading a newspaper, like, Marjorie, did you hear the tram ran over 3 people today? Ah, bloody idiots. Like. And
Oh, that's
really,
so neat.
Yeah. No,
I have a lot of younger siblings, and I have run games for them a lot. And it's interesting how, like, the level of maturity that they can have, and that really gets put on display while they're playing the game, that you might not see in other places.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you find yourself in a situation with players that are brand new, I actually find that those safe spaces are much easier to build because they're willing to learn and adapt and absorb the feelings and I guess desires and needs of the people around them. Whereas I find a lot of very, very, very experienced players either have it set exactly like these are the safe space conditions and this is what it is every time, and may unintentionally find themselves overlapping with people who aren't comfortable with something that they're unaware of. Or you have people who are, kind of the yes, that's right, back in my day, we didn't talk about safe spaces.
Yeah.
Gold was used to pay for levels, and you just...
Oh, no.
Yeah, like, you're the old... Yeah.
I love, personally, new players are some of my favorite people to run games for, just because of how, because they hear about D&D or they've watched a little bit and they're like, wait, so I can kind of do things here. I can kind of work with my environment here. And new players especially have had some of the craziest, like, most creative solutions to problems ever. It's just a lot of fun. They're some of my favorite people to run games for.
Ah, absolutely. I could not agree more. I couldn't agree more. New players, especially young players, are just an absolute delight to play with.
Yeah.
So, moving into a little bit more details about creating safe spaces. Now, in my opinion, there are 2 major categories of safe space that we create, and I think there's a very distinct difference in how we build them. The first is when we are trying to build a safe space for a home game. This is a game with a close-knit group of individuals. This could be, let's say, for measure, that there's a GM and up to 6 players, right? What are some of the things that we should be taking into stock as we create this safe space? What are the things that, say, the GM or the host should be doing?
Okay. 1 second, just 1 second. I might not have fully understood the question. Can you repeat it back?
So, like, let's say that you're creating a game for the very first time. You're bringing a group of up to 6 people to your house, and you want to create a safe environment for these guys for the campaign in your session 0, right? So, what's
Yes.
on that checklist specifically for you to discuss with those players, to find out about them and what their expectations are, to create this safe space?
Oh, absolutely. There are several ways of going about it, and I've done it several times over. because making sure everybody's like having a good time and they're comfortable and nobody's being put on edge is, as one might guess, it's kind of something I like to do. Even with my closer players, or tighter knit inner circle of people that I usually play with, I still like to make sure everybody's accommodated for. There are several ways of going about it. There's my personal way, and there's also in online. You can look it up, just like an RPG, consent checklist. I'm sure everybody's heard of it by now. Like last year, there were a lot of people talking about it. But what I just like to do is, usually whenever I have newer players sitting down, I like to ask if there are any topics that people might be uncomfortable with or they would like to just see ignored, which works very well for me because I also don't usually include those topics. Things like, child murder, sexual assault, intensely tragic events, or very grisly and detailed or graphic scenes. Like, I usually don't describe, like, say how an evil knight just like guts some barmaid and the intestines fly everywhere and just the head explodes like a Tarantino movie or something.
Oh yeah, no. There are certain things that we definitely like to gloss over. Like, for example,
Yeah.
how a cubone is born. Like, a lot of people have theories about it. I have my own theory. It is very graphic.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Because I mean, every cubone has their mum's skull, right? Which for me is just like, well, yeah. Anyway, I digress. It's fine. Carry on.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, in RPGs, there are a lot of things that people like to gloss over or just casually forget about for the sake of keeping the game moving and spirits high. If a village burns down or like a town gets destroyed, it goes without saying that a lot of kids were harmed. But a lot of people, myself included, are not super comfortable going into those details.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, and you watch some kid get burnt to death in a building. It's like, I don't want that. I
That's
don't
not
want
what
to
I'm
hear
after
about
here.
that. I would like to not pay it. I'd like to focus on, killing the dragon or whatever.
I mean, you could easily achieve the exact same thing by having the characters learn the following day that the orphanage burnt down, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
you,
exactly.
you get
You
all
could find out about that. You can kind of gloss over it a little bit or just
yeah.
explain it later in, like, as something that happened.
Yeah, exactly. And it's far less impactful when it becomes an active live
Yeah,
thing.
when
And I
it's
think
like,
and I think that also that's actually a really good thing to also bring up if we're talking like topics that might be sensitive is the context in which they're presented. Like, if we're talking about something happening in the now, right? Of course, these straightaway no's. Hearing about news or hearing about topics that have already occurred could also still be a trigger as well. So that might be something to also clarify in addition
oh,
to,
definitely.
you know,
Definitely.
because I mean, I'm not talking about children being harmed or anything, so there's no warning coming up on screen. I did play a game where I did have a player who did not want anything to do with child endangerment in this particular scenario. Now, in
Hmm.
this scenario that I created, I had to run a very feathered line, and before I even ran this, I ran it past the player. But this is just kind of to give you an idea of where that line might be drawn. There is a creature in Pathfinder First Edition called I want to call it a grave crawler, grave walker, something like that. And what they do is they're the spirits of people who have been buried alive. And they rise up from the grave soil, they attack people, and they put them into a state of suspended animation for up to 2 weeks. They appear dead to everyone, and they have the funeral, they bury them, and then 2 weeks later, they awaken in their coffin, and they, yada, 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 become the next, grave walker. So I had plans for doing this with a child, but what I did was I had the grave digger say, "Here is some ointment. I forgot to put this on the child during the funeral. I need you to exhume the body and perform the blessing rites because I do not wish for this child's soul to, be at risk in any way." The group put the oil, kind of did the whole thing, and for me it was really funny, but I had to make sure it was okay with the person who made this point. But as they opened up the chest, naturally the child who was alive suddenly goes And the first reaction from the paladin is, undead, get it! And then immediately, immediately the player who I'd told it's a kid said, wait, no, hold on, can I make a religion check? And then I was like, yes, you can. So, by being honest and being open, I was able to not only still have my scene, but work with the person whose comfort levels were at play in order to have that scene play out in a positive way. That was
that was the best way to handle it, really.
Exactly.
I could see that going in an entirely different direction had that not been previously discussed. And if somebody's comfort levels are at risk, it's definitely best to go over future themes with them, or make sure that they're okay with and comfortable with something like that.
And of course, within
and what
reason.
You were saying earlier.
Yeah, and okay, of course, within reason. Don't just say hey, I'm afraid of snakes. Okay, cool. What about a pit of snakes? Right? Are you okay?
Oh,
crawling?
Absolutely. Yes.
It's like no, don't start bringing that up. But little things that add subtlety to a scene that will actually add something. Don't be afraid to kind of touch on those. And when someone says no, straight up, just keep that as the no.
Oh yeah. I also do want to go back to something you said earlier, because it was really, really true. It really struck a chord. Hearing about things that were damaging or, somewhat, hearing about things that are uncomfortable or somewhat triggering can be a bit less, the pain can be felt a bit less in retrospect. Like you always hear about the player who his parents were killed or whatever, he's an orphan or something like that.
Yep.
And those are generally seen as fine. However, some people don't like playing in a game where parents are made into where parents' kids are made into orphans actively. So
yeah. That's like the natural order of a world setting kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. You always hear about the orphan rogue, but people usually don't like playing a kid who's about to become an orphan rogue.
No, absolutely. And themes, of course, is definitely a heavy player here. There was actually a story, and this actually brings us very nicely segueing into our next part of creating safe spaces, which is creating safe places in public. There was a story a few years back, and I'm not sure if you've heard of this. There was a guy who was banned from a convention in the UK after running a very scandalous Game of Thrones inspired public game. Apparently, he had given the game an R rating, which everyone had been aware of. But when they got to the table, the level that it was at drove the entire people away, to the point where they talked to the organizers talked to this guy, and he got banned. It was a whole thing. And to be honest, the content was deplorable. Let me start by saying that. They weren't unreasonable. It's not like, snowflake syndrome or anything like that. It's like, no, this guy had clearly recently watched Goblin Slayer or something and was on a bit of a kick. And I can appreciate that, but public games are a little different, and that's what I want to talk about now is safe spaces when we're looking at the public forum. So, in what way do you feel something? Well, how can I put this? How different do you feel your preparation might need to be between your home games and your public games, like games that you would run at conventions or at your local game store or free RPG day?
That is a very interesting question, because I've never run public games before, I should say. I've run a lot of games for strangers or people I didn't really know, but none of them were out in conventions or game stores. However, I've played in them, and something that would have been nice to have been made available to me at least is to know that the convention or the host, the place, has rules over what they can and can't go over, so I can just read them at this game store, we like to keep it at a soft M, like what you do here on your channel. Something like that. On top of that, because a lot of game runners do have the game already set up in mind, sort of how the ESRB ratings kind of give a list of the things that are in their games, like drug use, language, or whatever.
Yep.
it would be interesting to see modules for the more heavily uh what's the right word, games that have more themes that would make more people uncomfortable, to kind of have a list, of what it is. Like this one
Mm,
has child endangerment, or, like sexual assault or whatever.
mm.
And we like to let you know beforehand just so you know what you're getting into. Maybe something like that, though. I'm not 100% sure. It's, again, this is not, public games are not really my ballpark.
No, that's perfectly fine. I completely agree. I think one of the biggest differences between a home and a public game is that you don't just have your players' safe space to consider, but your audience as well. I've done a lot of public games. Again, my 9 to 5 job is running games out of a youth center. At any point in time, someone might just walk in through the door and join one of my games. And that's it. I've got to get them a character sheet. I got to get them set in. I got to introduce them to the scene and then go. And so what I lack is that ability to stop them and say, what are all of your safe things? Where do we draw the line
yeah.
here? So for me, when I look at a safe space in public, my go-to rule is, would you run that for grandma? Would you sit
yeah.
would you sit grandma down and put her character in this scenario and say it with a straight face? Like for me, there's just that element of like maturity versus fun. If I'm playing a public game, I don't want the kind of Lord of the Rings epic saga that kind of has me in tears, fully invested in stuff. Usually public games are just kind of like the get up and go, right? So I want something that makes me feel like a champion, makes me feel like I've scaled a mountain. I want to leave that table with a high. And I think public games are a brilliant forum for that. And in order to do that, it's all about creating positivity through that role play and avoiding those topics just in general. Clean sweep. Anything that fits into a consensus form that you would need in a home game, everything is immediately off the table for you to have the best kind of safe space for a public game.
No, you put it much, much better than I could have. That's definitely how I feel about it now. Making sure that making sure that
yeah, but you know what you said about like having, because here's the thing, like that for me is, and we did briefly talk about this in the green room about the idea of censorship. That for me is that very, very fine line between creating a safe space and censoring what's being able to be there. In order to counteract that whole element of like, just saying nope, you're not allowed to do any of these. I love the idea that you came up with, though, of there being a very clear labeled warning of what content is going to be featured in this. Not just it's R-rated, but specifically, yes, it is going to feature drug use, it's going to feature violence, it's going to feature this, that, the other. Mm-hmm. And the more information you share openly about it, the better off you are,
Exactly. That is the best way to put it. The more freely you share the information about the more risque content, the more comfortable the players are, the more they'll know what to expect going in. And so the less, on their toes they'll be if somehow accidentally something that they didn't foresee coming up that is more traumatic or damaging to them comes up. All of a sudden they're completely uncomfortable and the whole mood is killed.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you're looking at a streaming space as well.
Especially with streaming.
Yeah. There are definitely plenty of horror stories of streams that have had direct hits and near misses when it comes to content. So if you are a streamer, and I know a lot of my watchers are streamers themselves, guys, safe spaces. Don't mess about with them. Like especially if you're broadcasting, take the time. Put in the effort, and like me and CritCrab are saying, be honest, be open, and let everyone know what it is you're about. And once you do that, you're definitely gonna have a way better time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Though I will say a lot of.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say one last little thing on that. Also remember that not everyone is gonna join you at the beginning of your stream. right? So if you put out a warning like, hey, by the way, guys, we're going to have giant spiders crawling across the screen at random intervals every 15 seconds, you know, someone will tune in at half an hour completely unprepared, okay? Just
Oh my gosh, as somebody with really bad arachnophobia, I'm terrified of, like, I don't know what happened. I can't do spiders. I can't.
well,
Even the
truth be told,
Skyrim
mate,
spiders give me a bit of a jump. So if I were to jump in a stream and just see a spider come out of nowhere with no warning, I would probably leave the stream immediately and not come back. Just have some ice cream, wrap myself in a stress blanket.
Look, not that I'm making a comparison, but can I say that I find that there is a slight irony in a crustacean having a fear of spiders?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I
have to live with that every day.
I mean, technically inside of a shell, you don't really have mirrors, so I mean, that's yeah. Okay, I guess.
Yeah,
Though,
no.
how do you feel about coconut crabs?
Coconut crabs. Okay, I think they're kind of cool though. Actually,
okay.
The things that really get me about spiders is the close-ups of their faces. That's what really gets me go. It's like all those eyes and the mouth thing, and it's and all the hair. It's just like.
You know what? If I had the time and the editing skill, I would. I was just thinking to myself, I should totally like do some close-ups of some crab images, of like.
I know what you're. I understand. I don't know how it's less threatening when I see a crab. I'm like, yo, cool, it's a crab. And if I see a spider, I'm like, oof, no.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I live in Australia. Naturally, spiders are what we're known for. I have developed spider senses, right? Anytime I'm like recording in my studio, I'm looking in the opposite direction and suddenly, just doesn't matter. You know, and it's worse. It's because when you're in Australia, you're always within a few feet of a spider. And, some people have actually watched me on stream, and I'm just sitting there like, all right, guys, so, we're going to end the stream now because for various reasons I have to leave. But thank you very much for watching. Goodbye. I'm just watching this descending ball of arachnid chaos. Should be my next boss monster, arachnid chaos. All right.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't survive a day.
That's okay. I'm sure you do fine. The beaches are beautiful at the very least.
Beaches.
Oh yeah, and you know what? Thank you once again for inviting us to your beach to hang out today and talk about safe spaces. You know what? And the reason why I think it's very important that you and I had this conversation was because. As I said, one of the things you do on your channel is really inspiring to me, and that is you take a very, very insightful look at these people who are going through some really, really rough games out there. And they are there. They exist. It'd be silly to think that everyone plays like Matt Mercer, right?
Right.
And more importantly, you shine a reflection on those things that would have made those areas safe. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not done so already, please, please, please take the moment to go and subscribe to CritCrab's channel.
Thank you.
Watch a ton of his videos because, honestly, you'll be not only entertaining yourselves for hours because there are how many videos do you have on your channel?
180 some, I believe.
Yeah, 180
and counting. I'm making more videos faster.
There you go. So, you'll not only get to see a ton of videos that'll keep you occupied for endless hours, but also you'll get to get insight into those scenarios and creating safe spaces. So if this video wasn't enough for you, honestly, that is the best next place to go. Is there anything you'd like to plug before we sign off for the day?
I think you've just about done it for me. That's my channel. It's pretty much my entire online presence, save like my Twitter and Twitch. But again, those are just kind of my channel is the main squeeze. It's what you're looking for. You can find everything you need over there.
Fantastic. And you know what? One day I will try to find a way. I'll put up a water tank on one of my tables, and we'll see if we can get you playing at one of my tables one day.
I think that'd be a blast.
All right. Well, thank you again, and guys. we're going to sign out. Thank you for watching this video, and if it helped you in any way, then this video has been worth making. If you have any questions following up, please leave a link or a comment below with all the question information that you would like, and we will do what we can to answer those questions. If you want a little bit extra, then head on over to our Patreon page, where me and Crab will have a couple more little things to share. And if you want to check out all the other social medias and stuff, check down below. That'll be linked to CritCrab stuff, to my stuff, including my Twitch and Twitter and the like. And guys, till next time, as always, from us to you, game hard or die trying. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Till next time.